Thank you. So some of the younger kids who are watching this week, they're learning about observing and observations, and I know that's a big part of a scientist's job. So I thought maybe you could say something about, exactly like the scientific process, like the process you go through as a
Yep,
scientist.
definitely. That's a great question. So the observation is kind of at the core of what we do. It's really, I think, at the start of any experiment that we do in our, daily life as a scientist. Like the way I kind of think about science is that when I look out of my window and I see something and I wonder about it, that's really how science starts. So, like, you see something outside or in your environment that kind of catches your attention, and then you start to wonder about it, and then maybe develop a question about why it's happening or how it's happening. And then once you come up with that question, the next part right away is to start observing how this process, whatever it is, takes place. So the scientific process always starts with the question, the observation, and then after you have the question and after you make some observations, then you start to develop something called a hypothesis, where you're trying to answer the question that you came up with, but by doing an experiment to get to that answer, not by just making a guess or like trying to just think about what happens without doing any testing or experimenting. So the hypothesis is something that I can test. It's something that I could do an experiment on and try to figure it out. And then after the hypothesis, usually comes the actual procedure of the experiment. So that's when you actually start the testing process of your hypothesis. That's when you kind of gather materials. You go through the actual steps of the experiment. What you need to do, all the data that you need to collect, all these things that would help you maybe try to find the answer to the original question that you have. And then if you do collect some data and you get some results, then you can try to analyze these results, and then kind of develop a conclusion as to how your experiment went and whether it helped you actually answer the question or it didn't, and more work needs to be done. So this is informally kind of how the scientific process works, but it always starts with observation.